Well, good evening and welcome to the Iron Horse channel. Most people know me. My name is Ross. It's no big secret. This morning I was woken up and felt obliged to just draw something. And that's what I sort of started with. And I was originally just trying to do a Star of David. And then what I was going to do is try and find a compass and start drawing some circle life figures. And when I started doing it, I found some sort of sacred geometric pattern where I drew the first triangle. I just drew it 8 centimeters per side. So it's an equilateral triangle. And then when I did the next one, the upside down one, I sort of measured the midway point between it and used that as the starting place to draw it. And I realized it wasn't actually equilateral, wasn't symmetrical. So it works out to have a 7 centimeter height. If you draw an 8 centimeter sided triangle, the not the hypotenuse, what do you call that one? The up and downiness of it is 7 centimeters. I thought that was quite interesting. 7, 8. So anyway, so I did another one then as I measured 2 centimeters either side. And anyway, in the middle, you get a diamond. So make of that what you will. I don't know what to make of it. Next time I'm going to just do it a bit more organically. Lots of mosquitoes here at the moment. It's pissing down frame. Fucking mosquitoes. Come on, bastard. Getcha. Hang on a second. For a minute there, it looked like he was going to try and have a sip of my beer. So I'm just going to freehand draw this one. So I hope that the board shows well enough there. As you can tell, I'm not an expert video presenter, and I don't know how to use things like graphics. I think that's the word for it. But let's just pretend then that's an equilateral triangle. We can make it a bit more equilateral than that. We'll just make it about like that. And then we'll do another one about like that. So that's an equilateral triangle superimposed one above the other. And now if you look at a pyramid, a 4-sided pyramid with a flat square base. So if you can imagine, that's a flat square base and that's a flat square base. So you've got one inverted and one upverted. Look at that, they almost match up. How cool is that? And so that's a 3-dimensional shape, which is known as a star tetrahedron. Now, I think the official star tetrahedron shape is actually a 3-sided pyramid, which makes it a bit more complicated because it's got more of the 3, 6, 9 happening, whereas once you go into the 4, 6, 8 sort of problem, it complicates it slightly. So I think that star tetrahedron shape is where I want to start. And what I would like to do is assume that that's a center point of a circle. And so I'd have to sort of draw a circle around there. And then I'd draw a circle around there. And then I'd draw a circle around there. And that one didn't work. I should have drawn it a bit bigger. That's probably a bit too big, but we'll just forget about that for the moment. We'll draw another circle around there. And then another circle around there. And then another circle around there. So ideally then you've got, God. See, it's definitely a freehand style drawing. But the whole point of it is, what I'm trying to do is give the impression of the flower of life pattern. And it doesn't work because that circle, but anyway, so you've got your vesica Pisces here. You know, we understand the normal 2 points. That there is your vesica Pisces. That's like the symbol of all life. It's the yoni and the birth canal and all that sort of stuff. So I sort of think that the Star David shape, I don't know what's the whole, and the flower of life pattern are interrelated. Now this is where, here's one I prepared earlier. This is where I have like the diamond shape cut thing. So we'll try and zoom in on it a bit. As you can see then, that is a normal diamond cut jewel. This is just a glass replica. So this is what it looks like this way. And this is what it looks like that way. And so as you can see, it is covered in facets. Multiple facets. And this is where I think that the Beatles had their inspiration for their song that we're all quite familiar with, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I know, it sounds a little bit out there and bizarre and conspiracy theory to those who aren't familiar with it, but I've been working on this theory for quite some time now. So Lucy is Lucifer, the light bearer, in the sky with diamonds. So this is where it gets a little tricky for some people. But when you look at that, the diamond, obviously the facet in the center has a midpoint. And so if you could imagine looking up at it from below, that point would be the equivalent of Polaris. And so as it rotates around, it's all the stars in the center of the Earth up to the equator are rotating in perfect circles, no matter where you look up from. Now on a globe, that shouldn't happen. You know, I don't know if I can draw a quick demo of that. But if you're on a tilted, wobbling, spinning ball, and there's your star up there, that's Polaris, and you're on the surface here, and you're rotating around like that, looking up would not create perfectly circular star trails. I only see perfectly circular star trails from here, looking up as the thing spun, because this is like a 8,000 mile diameter across. Now 8,000 miles might seem insignificant to you, but if you can imagine when you're on a carousel, a merry-go-round, when you're a little child and you see your mother off, or your father, or your legal guardian, whoever you've got off into the distance or across the barrier fence to stop people jumping on without a ticket. If you look at them, as you're going around and around, as you look at them, you see their full face, and you, and then as you're going, and then they're gone. And they're gone. So you're basically only looking at something for a very short period of the time of the rotation, because you are on something while something else is standing still. And as you travel away, they disappear exponentially, and as they appear back into your view, they appear exponentially again. But when they're in your field of view, they move much, much slower. And then as you move away, boom, they're suddenly gone. So, pardon me. So what I'm trying to get at is that the observations of the stars, if we were on a spinning ball, do not match what we should actually expect to see if we gave it a little bit of critical thinking and thought, what would it really look like? It'd be elliptical, and things would move in and out of view much different from how we actually see it. However, from a stationary planar Earth point of view, where they are what's rotating around above us, what you see is what you get. And again, I have to go back to this example. What you see, North Pole, Polaris. As you move further and further outwards, as it rotates, they're still going to be rotating in perfect circles. However, once you reach this point, it's the equator. That's the point where Polaris disappears due to convergence. I nearly said angular resolution, but that's not the case at all. It's because when you get further and further away from something, it seems to get lower and lower and lower until we reach this equidistant point away from Polaris, where it disappears into the convergence point, and we conveniently just call that point the equator. We call that 0 degrees latitude. Directly under the pole is 90 degrees. Get that far out, 0 degrees. So all your lines of latitude can be measured in whatever multiple degrees you want until you get there, and that's how we know you've reached the equator, because you can no longer see Polaris. You have not descended into the underworld, you've not reached the edge of the globe, you're not sliding down over anything. I know you've got gravity that can hold you there. The point is, you've just moved so far away outwards, you've reached the equidistant point, which is a circle, which is called the equator, which is what Eratosthenes measured, because it also happens to be the path of the sun. Now this is a big what if Polaris, the dot in the center, was also the sun, or at least the backside of it was a projection of the sun. So you've got all these facets now that it's projected down through the experience of refraction and all the rest, because that's what light will do. It can refract down each and every one of those arms, and as it rotates, if say it's the backside of Polaris, it's going to project the sun out the opposite side. So you see the sun in the day and you see Polaris at night. However, in the outer circle, because of the way it's cut, Lucy's in the sky with diamonds, there's all these different facets. Really hard to see, I guess, on the camera, but there's multiple facets. And for some reason or other, the jewelers have been making jewellery in this particular cut fashion for a very, very long time. I don't know why, but that's what they do. So if we then imagine the centre, so that's the North Pole right there. So we're down on the ground looking up. That's our, can you see that? That's our Earth over there. If we can superimpose this star field above the Earth, the equator then becomes that point of the cut jewel. And so then each one of these in the circle of life fashion is kind of acting, and you can sort of see it again. I'll probably have to do some more experiments and project light actually directly into it. But you can see, picture yourself on a boat on a river, the girl with kaleidoscope eyes, Lucy in the sky with diamonds. So if that's the equator, then each one of these in the south outside of the equator is a facet of the jewel. And so what happens in a facet is you get a reverse, just like you see in a kaleidoscope. In the toy we probably all played with as children. I know, I used to be fascinated with it, but the thing with that is they had little bits of plastic and beads and little plastic jewels like that inside of it. So as you rotated it, they moved around, so it made a different pattern every time. However, the stars in the sky are fixed because they're all seated in heaven. So as you look through the kaleidoscope of the sky, inside of the equator, everything moves in perfect circles, one direction. As you reach the edge, they straighten up. So the stars appear to be moving straight. And then when you turn around and look the other way, they appear to be going the other direction. But what's really happening is they're in one of the facets. So you are seeing the exact same image in every one of the outer facets as everybody else sees once you're outside of the equator, because that's what it's doing. It's creating that kaleidoscopic effect. Because the stars themselves aren't jumbling around inside the thing, they give the exact same, sometimes distorted because they've gone around by degrees each time. So when we're looking at the Southern Cross in Western Australia at this exact same time, they're seeing it in places like Port Elizabeth in South Africa. The crux looks to be about 90 degrees different, but we're seeing it at the same time because we're looking up through a facet. And of course, because the sun is shining basically through 50% of it at any given time, that blocks out any vision of the stars whatsoever. So the stars are completely invisible on at least 50%, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the height of the sun or Polaris. I do believe they're different things, to be honest. I don't think that the sun actually is the backside of Polaris, but it's just used as an example to try and describe what is potentially going on. As it gets higher, it makes a smaller circuit through the front of the jewel. So, you know, as I bring it closer, you see if I got further and further away, but still made the same size circuit, it's going to make a small circuit, but if I bring it closer and make the same one, it gets bigger and bigger. And so eventually it's going to be so close to the top of the firmament that once it passes the equator on the equinox, those facets spread the light out over a greater distance. So the outer hemisphere, the southern side, has longer daylight hours, seeing the same sun but through a different facet. But as it rotates around, as the whole sky clock rotates around, eventually they still get night. You know, even places like Ushuaia at the far southern tip of South America, it still gets 17, maybe 18 hours of daylight on the summer solstice on December 22nd. So it's not as though you get a 24-hour sun in the south until you reach the very perimeter. Then all the facets are bending all the light all around. So Antarctica could still quite easily get a 24-hour appearance of sun for several months of the year, even though I don't think it's necessarily true. It's still entirely possible. If somebody could prove it, then we could work on that theory even more. But the fact that Ushuaia only gets 18 hours, that's still, 6 hours of darkness. That's a lot of hours, man. 6 hours. That's plenty of time to get a good night's sleep. So that's my basic understanding that I think needs to be studied in greater and greater depth. The Lucy in the sky with diamonds theory, the star rotations, why we all see, if you're looking up from Australia, you see the crux. You're looking up from South America, you see the crux. You're looking up from, Africa, looking up from South America, you'll see the crux. Because each one of the facets is projecting the exact same appearance of the stars, still all rotating in the same direction around Polaris, even though the viewer themselves are the one who's turned around and faced the other direction. I think I'll leave that one there for tonight. Have a good one and meditate on this, because I really think there's a lot to it. Thanks for watching, and appreciate feedback, positive, negative. We can talk about it. I'll try and make more videos responding to comments. Thanks.